You ever get that feeling like, something's going on behind the scenes with major
Yeah.
events? That feeling, the official story, doesn't quite cover it. Well, that's
Hmm.
often the starting point for conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
People trying to make sense of things.
That's a great way to put it. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this whole phenomenon. We've gathered, quite a few sources.
Okay.
There's news analysis on the golden billion theory, some academic work from the European Commission on conspiracy theories in general, and also a study looking at COVID conspiracy theories in Arabic media. Quite a mix.
So this is for anyone who wants to get a handle on this topic, or maybe is just uh, curious about why these ideas stick.
Yeah.
Our goal here is basically to unpack them, what they are, why they're appealing, their impact.
Yeah, and we want to give you that clear, thorough understanding without, making it overly complicated.
Right.
And it's really important to remember some might seem, I don't know, harmless, even silly. But others can have really serious consequences. Well, our sources definitely show how they can fuel extremism, erode trust, stuff like that. We'll also look closely at one specific theory mentioned in a few places, this golden billion idea.
Okay, let's get into it then. What is a conspiracy theory? We hear the term all the time, but what's the actual definition? It can feel a bit vague sometimes.
That's fair. So the European Commission defines it as the belief that certain events or situations are secretly manipulated behind the scenes by powerful forces with negative intent.
Secret manipulation,
Yeah.
powerful forces, negative intent. Got it.
And UNESCO says pretty much the same thing. It's that core idea of hidden actors pulling strings, usually for bad reasons.
Okay, so those are the key ingredients.
Exactly. And the research points to some common features. You've usually got an alleged secret plot, right? Then a group of conspirators, sometimes named, sometimes just elites or them, and then evidence.
Evidence in quotes, I imagine, not like scientific evidence.
Right. Often the evidence is more like anomalies, things
Right.
that seem weird, or bits and pieces of info that get stitched together to fit the story.
Uh-huh.
A really core belief in many of these theories is that nothing is an accident. No coincidences. Everything is connected in this secret plan.
So it imposes order on what might just be
Yeah.
chaos
Yeah.
or complex systems we don't fully understand.
Precisely. And they often paint things in very stark black and white terms. It simplifies the world into like an us, the people who see the truth, and a them, the bad guys doing the conspiring.
Yeah, that could be really divisive,
Definitely. It makes it hard to have nuanced conversations or see other viewpoints.
which I guess makes sense. If things feel confusing, a simple story with clear villains, well, that can be really appealing, can it? Especially if you want quick answers.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's probably good to distinguish these theories from, say, fake news or just plain rumors. They're related, but not quite the same.
Okay, yeah, how are they different? Because people do seem to mix them up.
Well, think about fake news. Not all of it claims some big secret plot, right?
Yep.
And often the people spreading it know it's false. They might have political motives or just want to cause trouble.
Okay, so intent matters.
It does. Many conspiracy theorists genuinely believe their theories are true, even if the evidence is flimsy. They're not necessarily trying to lie. They think they've uncovered something real.
That's a really important difference. One's deception, the other's.
Hmm.
A strongly held belief may be misguided.
Kind of, yeah. And then rumors usually focus on smaller things, more immediate events, maybe. Like, did you hear about the side effects from the local clinic's vaccine batch?
Right. Specific, maybe localized?
Whereas a conspiracy theory offers this huge, overarching explanation. Not just, this vaccine batch might be bad, but the entire vaccine program was created by a secret group to control the population. See the difference in scale.
Yeah, much bigger picture. Grand narratives.
But there's definitely a strong link. Our sources point out that some fake news is designed to look like a conspiracy theory, like Pizzagate that started as totally fabricated fake news but took on a life of its own as a conspiracy.
Okay, so they can definitely fuel each other.
Yeah.
Right, we know what they are, roughly how they differ from fake news.
Right.
But why are they so compelling? What's the appeal?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The European Commission source calls them morality tales, like basic age-old stories of good versus evil.
Simplifying complex morality into a clear fight.
Exactly. And that can be comforting in a world that often feels, well, morally gray. They also often create the sense of urgency, like there's a huge threat and we need to do something about it now.
So it's not just explaining things, it's a call to action.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And that can even be used to justify, pretty extreme actions against the supposed enemies.
Worrying.
Another thing is how they often frame believers as victims. It flips the script that we are the ones being targeted by this secret plot, and they are the perpetrators responsible for our problems.
It's a way to find someone to blame, an external cause for difficulties.
It feeds right into that us versus them thing we talked about, blaming the out-group for whatever the in-group is facing. And personally, believing can give you a sense of, well, feeling special.
How so?
Like, you have secret knowledge. You're one of the few who understands what's really going on while everyone else is, asleep or being fooled. It's kind of an ego boost.
Being in the know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would appeal. Especially the idea of uncovering hidden connections, getting that aha moment.
Definitely. And of course, we absolutely have to talk about the internet and social media here.
Oh, for sure. It feels like they've just exploded online.
The sources really back that up. The internet hasn't necessarily created more conspiracy theorists, maybe, but it's made the theories way more visible, easier to find, and they spread incredibly fast.
Platforms like YouTube come to mind.
Yeah, and there's that whole debate about recommendation algorithms, right? How they might even unintentionally lead people down rabbit holes toward more extreme stuff.
Because they want to keep you watching.
Yeah.
Right. And strong emotional content often does that.
Exactly. It prioritizes engagement. But we should also remember, the internet can be used for good here, too. You can use it to check facts, look into sources, see who's reliable, if you have the skills.
Right. If you know how to use it critically. It's a tool. Can be used either way. Okay, let's get specific. The sources had some really interesting examples. What about those COVID-19 theories in Arabic media? What were the big themes there?
Yeah, that study was fascinating. Some major themes popped up again and again. One was this idea of global depopulation, aiming for that golden billion number. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Also, ideas about deliberately crashing the economic system. And of course, the theory that the virus itself was made in a lab.
Big claims. Who were supposed to be the masterminds in these videos?
It was a real mix. Sometimes vague elites or secret societies. Other times specific people. Bill Gates came up a lot. Trump, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, even Tedros at the WHO.
Wow.
And then organizations like the WHO itself, big pharma companies, Pfizer, Moderna, and even whole countries like the US, UK, China.
A huge cast of villains. How did the videos try to convince people? What kind of language did they use?
The researchers looked at what they called discursive practices, basically how language was used. They found a really decisive, assertive tone like, this is the hidden truth, no question.
Confident.
Very. Lots of warnings, trying to build fear and urgency, metaphors like biological war, rhetorical questions to lead the audience, and a big reliance on presuppositions, the idea that nothing is a coincidence, was everywhere.
So really working hard to frame it as undeniable fact and create a certain mindset. Did any particular ideology seem connected to these?
Yes, several. Some theories definitely drew on anti-Semitic tropes, talking about a Zionist lobby. There was also quite a bit of anti-Western feeling. And interestingly, some Islamist framings, like COVID being divine punishment or part of a big conspiracy against Islam.
It really shows how conspiracy theories can latch on to existing societal tensions and beliefs, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They often recycle old grievances.
What about the evidence used in these videos? What form did that take?
Often it was based on logical fallacies, like false causation. They'd link something like the Event 201 planning exercise to the pandemic starting, implying one caused the other just because it happened beforehand.
Right. Correlation isn't causation.
Exactly. Also, circular reasoning, where the conclusion is kind of used as proof, attacking people personally, like WHO officials, instead of their arguments ad hominem attacks, and claiming things were predicted in books or movies.
So connecting dots that aren't really connected, attacking the messenger, finding vague similarities.
Pretty much sums it up. And again, tapping into those pre-existing narratives about Western plots or anti-Semitic ideas that have been around for a while in the region.
It really highlights how these things build on each other.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to another one mentioned, the Great Replacement Theory. That sounds quite dark.
It is. It's the belief that white populations are being deliberately and systematically replaced by immigrants. The source connects it directly to white supremacist thinking, and tragically, it's inspired real-world violence.
That's chilling. A direct link from theory to violence. And it connects to other ideas, too, like anti-feminism. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a strange link, but the theory sometimes argues that feminism was pushed to lower birth rates among white women, distracting them from motherhood, supposedly making it easier for immigrant populations to take over.
Wow. Weaving social issues into this overarching plot.
Yeah.
The report also mentions QAnon and Pizzagate. Those are more anti-establishment, anti-elite, right?
That's right. QAnon and Pizzagate fit that mold. Often involve ideas about a deep state or some hidden cabal controlling things. QAnon especially got a lot of attention recently.
And that brings us back to the golden billion theory. We heard it in the COVID context, and it's central to the NPR piece, too. What's the core idea there?
So the golden billion theory, according to NPR and other sources, is big in the Russian-speaking world. It claims there's this group, usually Western elites, who are actively trying to hoard the Earth's resources for just the richest billion people, leaving everyone else out, basically. It paints this picture of a deliberate plot to maintain extreme global inequality.
Resource control by a malicious elite. And the NPR source said Putin uses this theory. Why?
Well, the expert quoted, Andrei Kolesnikov, suggested it's a way to rally support. Maybe not everyone fully buys it, but it taps into anti-Western sentiment. It's seen as useful both inside Russia and for building alliances in places like the Global South and Asia. Kind of an ideological tool.
Using a conspiracy theory for geopolitical gain, that's something. And it ties back to the COVID theories in Arabic media, too.
Yes, exactly. It was presented there as the reason for the supposed depopulation plot linked to COVID to get the world population down to that elite 1 billion.
Okay, so we've seen what they are, why they appeal, got some examples, but let's drill down. Why do individuals start believing this stuff?
Well, the European Commission source points to a few things. A big one is just that basic human need for clarity when things feel chaotic or complex. These theories offer simple answers.
Easier than grappling with uncertainty.
Exactly. And there are psychological factors. Certain personality traits might make someone a bit more prone, things like maybe higher levels of paranoia or narcissism, potentially.
So individual psychology can play a part.
It seems so. And socioeconomic factors, too. People facing tough times, feeling isolated, lots of uncertainty. They might be more receptive. And, fundamentally, a deep mistrust of elites, of institutions, of the government. That's huge.
Yeah, if you already feel the system isn't working for you, maybe a secret plot seems more plausible than just incompetence or complexity.
It can feel like a more satisfying explanation sometimes.
So, okay, these beliefs are out there. They can be harmful. What can actually be done to counter them?
The sources suggest we need a few different approaches. A really big one is education focusing on critical thinking skills, media literacy, digital literacy, helping people learn how to evaluate information themselves.
Makes sense. Teaching people how to think, not what to think, how to spot manipulation.
Exactly. And also trying to address the underlying feelings that make people vulnerable. Those feelings of uncertainty, powerlessness, mistrust. If you can address those root causes, maybe the theories lose some appeal.
So tackling the why as well as the what about specific strategies?
There's something called inoculation or pre-bunking. It's like warning people ahead of time about misinformation tactics, showing them examples, refuting arguments before they hear them. Research suggests this can work, for example, against anti-vax theories.
Giving people a sort of mental vaccine against the bad info. Interesting. What about arguing directly with someone who already believes?
Rebuttals can work, especially for people who aren't totally committed. Showing factual errors can reduce belief in specific claims, but, and this is crucial, you have to be careful how you do it.
Right.
Ridiculing someone, being aggressive, that usually backfires. It makes people defensive and can actually strengthen their belief.
That's such an important point. Attacking the person shuts down any chance of changing their mind.
Absolutely. And for someone really deep into a theory, their belief system can become very closed off. Sometimes trying to debunk it just gets interpreted as more proof of the conspiracy, like, of course they would say that.
Wow. So direct confrontation might not work for the really hardcore believers.
Often not. It's tricky. And the internet, again, it cuts both ways. It spreads the theories, but it also offers tools for checking facts and finding reliable sources.
If people are willing and able to use them.
That's the key.
Okay, so wrapping this up, conspiracy theories offer these simple, often compelling narratives for complex stuff, but they're based on shaky logic, can be really harmful, especially when linked to extremism. And the internet age has just poured fuel on the fire.
Yeah, that's a good summary. And it's worth remembering they're often symptoms of bigger issues, social, political, psychological anxieties. They don't just pop up out of nowhere.
So for you listening, hopefully this deep dive gives you some tools. Thinking critically about information, being aware of the persuasion tactics we've talked about. It's all part of navigating the world today.
Absolutely. And maybe a final question to leave you with. Considering all the reasons people believe and how hard it is to change minds sometimes, What are the best long-term strategies, do you think, for making society, less vulnerable to these kinds of narratives? It's a tough one.